computer. All right. So now we're just going to create talking about schema design and creating a schema from scratch. And there's plenty of tools out there to help you create like a schema design. So let's just open up. So we did SQL basics. We're going to go into schema design. So in this challenge, you're essentially going to want to create a Grubhub, Blue Apron, Instagram, like database schema. So have an orders table, restaurants, menu item, and users table. Users, service plans, recipe, promotion, delivery. But with this one, I'm just going to create one from scratch. I'm not going to use any of these. I'm going to kind of build upon the one we just did with the school. So what I'm going to do is create a students. Yeah, a students class, a students table, and a students table, an addresses table, and then students, when you go to school, they generally be like, all right, who's your guardian? Just in case of an emergency, we can call you. They can call your guardian to come pick you up, or just to let you know if there's any incident at school, they know who to call. So we're going to have a student table, an address table, and a guardians table. So students can have, I will say students can have one guardian, and the address will have, and then like the guardian will have an address. So we'll get into more specifics when I'm actually designing it. So in this challenge, you'll be designing schema for 3 different applications. Use this quick database design. So like I said, there's plenty of apps out there to help you do schema design, but this is one that's kind of helpful. However, I find it a little difficult to understand this specific this app's syntax. So it does have docs on how to do it, the basics. You can create tables, but essentially, so there's going to be 3 tables. There's going to be addresses. There's going to be guardians. And there's going to be students. So in the addresses table, we can have an ID, which primary key, which is an integer. Don't worry about this specific syntax. The syntax is specific to this application, but we'll copy it over to our actual schema. So this is just kind of give us a visual representation of our database schema. So our address is going to have line 1 column, which is going to be a string, line 2, because people live in apartments. We have a city, which is going to be a string, and state, which is going to be a string. And yeah, we'll keep it at that. Then guardians is going to have an ID, a primary key, an integer. So how it like automatically updates here. Name of the guardian, which is a string. A phone number, let's do it at a string representation of the phone number. So string, I'm going to start with an email, which is going to be a string. And a guardian is going to have an address. So this person who's a guardian should have an address. So address ID. It's going to be an integer. It's going to have a foreign key, which is a many to one of addresses dot ID. That work? Foreign key. Why didn't that work?
You have too many S's at the end.
Oh, thank you. There we go. See how it kind of already like it snapped this connection to it? Cool. So this means it's like a one-to-many. If you look at the docs, relationships, you can, here's like the, it's a many-to-one. relationship. So addresses can have many guardians. And then the students can have an ID, a primary key, integer. Can have a name, string, grade, string, date of birth. We can use date for that. And then guardian ID. ID, which is integer, foreign key. It's a many-to-one relationship, guardian ID. So cool. So now you can kind of see a visual representation of how everything works. This is one way to do it. You can use an online application like this, but the best way to do it, I find it, is literally just using a piece of paper. Like I use this all the time. So yeah, so if you kind of see like write out your tables using a piece of paper where like the foreign keys and just loop where like how the database tables are connected. It's the easiest way. It also helps you just to work out your thought process. And also, it's also part of whiteboarding. There are whiteboarding technical problems saying like, hey, you know, you are creating a Twitter account, or you're essentially creating a Twitter clone, and you have to design a database schema. Go ahead and design what tables you need, what associations you need for them. Does anybody have any questions about kind of?
Yeah, I know this seems kind of obvious, but I don't have an answer. There should never be a loop, right? Between primary or between foreign keys. You should never have some sort of loop, like from student to guardian to address to student. There would never be a loop, right?
Like have this like up here connected to like an ID, like some other key down here. Or
yeah.
So like where am I looking at? Students. So like student ID, it wouldn't be like address ID int fk addresses dot ID, like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there usually is never, that should rarely ever be the case, because if I want to get a student's address, I can go through the guardians table. I can say like, I can do a double join table. That's what it's called. So yeah. So yeah, you rarely ever will actually want a full loop. And we'll get into how to actually, so if I want to grab a student, where they like, so students usually live with their guardian. So for example, like their mom or dad or whoever, grandma. And I can find out the students where they live by going through the guardians table, and we'll write out what that SQL query looks like when we go ahead and create this. So I've got my database schema designed out here. Now I want to translate this to actual SQL code. So I'm going to close this. So I created a new directory called SQL examples. I'm going to list it out. There's nothing in here. So I'm going to touch example schema.sql. And I'm also going to create a seed, some seed data after I actually create it. So touch example schema. Cool. List it. I'm going to code example schema. Open that in my current window. Great. Now I just copied this over so I can go ahead and create it. The first thing I want to do is create my addresses table. So what's the first thing I need to do to actually create a table? Like if we look back at, not Peg Latin, SQL Basics.
Tom?
Yep.
Just exploring the website you guys gave out, you could actually export the whole schema as an SQL file and
Nice.
Postgres right there.
So I can export it.
And then, yeah, you grab
Yeah.
everything. In there.
Well, that's no fun. Come on. Yeah. So you can definitely do that, but we're going to create it from scratch. Just because there might be some errors. I might want to change some stuff. I might want to use like varchar instead of string, but that is a good example. So I can also alter table, whatever. But yeah, that's really cool. So you can also export it, but we're going to create it from scratch. So if I'm looking at this over here on the right, the create schema that we had in the last challenge, in the SQL Basics challenge, I'm going to try to copy, like emulate what this looks like. So the first thing I need to do is at the very top, I'm going to drop all my tables. Table if exists. So addresses, cascade. Is that right? Cascade. Then I'm going to copy this 3 more times. And then it's guardians. And then what is it, students? Cool. Now I want to create my actually create my addresses table. So create table, addresses, parentheses, and then I've got line 1 ID, serial primary key. So this is my primary key. Line 1, let's do varchar 255. Let's make it a not null. Oh, not line 2, line 1, then not line. Same thing for line 2. And then city. Let's do varchar 200. Make it not null. State, we're going to just do state abbreviations, varchar, like I wanted to do in the last one. Make it a not null. And do I have city, state? Did I forget zip code?
Line 2 could be null, right? It's optional.
Oh, yep, you're right. Actually, let's default it to null. Let's have a default to null. Let's actually do zip code. Varchar 5 elements. Make this a not null. Cool, there's our addresses. And let's move down to guardians. We can do create table, guardians, ID, serial, primary key, name, do varchar. I don't really care about the first and last name. Just gonna do the name, phone number. I'm gonna do a varchar 10. So first 3 is the area code followed by 7. So yep, varchar, email address. Let's do varchar, just 100. Not null for this one. These are just design choices. There's no specific reason why phone numbers I'm allowing null and email address is not null. An address ID, foreign key, so it's an integer. And how do I do references not null? Okay, we can do students might not have guard. Let's do not. Yeah, let's just do references, addresses. And last one, students Just gonna copy this over. Students table, ID, serial, primary key. I don't need this not null because primary key is null, not null by default. Varchar, grade. See what kind of grade they are in, and date of birth. It's a date, not null. Guardian ID, integer references guardians. So I've got my initial schema. I'm going to move all this stuff down at the very bottom. All right, drop table if exists. All right, now I actually have to create a database first. So I'm going to create a database called create DB. I'm going to call it Lima Platoon. All right, nothing happened. Sounds like it worked. I'm going to PSQL into Lima Platoon. All right, here I am in the Lima Platoon database. I'm going to inspect it. Did not find any relations. Okay. And I'm going to quit out of it. Now I'm going to load my schema by doing PSQL Lima Platoon. I should have done an underscore. Inject example schema. And I have to be within the file or within the directory of where this example schema SQL file resides. Does not exist. Skipping, drop table, drop. Oh no, create guardians. What happened? What did I forget?
Semicolon.
Semicolon. Don't forget them. All right. So I'm going to clear it again and run that example schema. Cool. Now clear it. I'm going to inspect it again. \D. Cool. Cool. I've got my addresses, guardians, and students table. Let's inspect it a little further. D. What is it? Addresses. All right. I've got line 1, line 2, city, state, zip code. Null character verifying. So it's got a default right here. Oh. Clear. I'm going to do \D guardians. All right. Everything looks good. I'm going to quit, clear. Now I'm going to code seed. I'm going to code some seed data. I'm going to insert some seed data. So I want to insert some addresses and some guardians. So let's insert some addresses and guardians, because right now, addresses and guardians. And then once I do some queries, I'm going to do some, insert some students in there. And then we can go ahead and start doing some querying. So if I want to insert into addresses, do I need to do ID or can I skip the ID? When I'm injecting data using a seed file, do I have to put an ID?
No, you want not to, I think, right?
Yeah, I don't have to. So line 1, city, because that line, so line 2 initially, line 2, I'm going to move this over here. So line 2 is default by null. So line 1. So for this, when I'm injecting this specific data into addresses, I'm not going to have a line 2. Let's see what happens. Let's inspect it after I inject it. Zip code, city, state, zip code, city, state, zip code. All right. Now insert into address table where line 1, column line 1, city, state, zip code, then the values to 125 Clark Street, West Clark Street, Chicago, the city, state is Illinois, and the zip code is, what is it, 60601. So let's run this and make sure this works. So I've got down here in my terminal, list, clear, PSQL, Lima Platoon, inject seed. Insert 1, cool. Now I just want to inspect Lima Platoon, PSQL, Lima Platoon, select star from addresses. All right, we got at least one address in there. I'm going to copy a couple more. Line 1, 170 West Real Street, 555 South Fake Street. Great. So I'm going to inject the seed, more seed data. All right. Uh-oh, syntax error, error at or near address line 1, values.
Semicolon.
Thank you. Don't forget
So
the
you didn't need a semicolon if it was the last one, because it wasn't there when you first put it in.
Yeah, I guess not. But it's good practice to always have that semicolon in there. Unless it automatically does it. So I'm going to reseed it. All right, insert 3 of them in there. I'm going to quit, clear it, and then inspect it. Again, select everything from addresses. Oh no, what happened? I got a bunch of replicas. All right. So, because the first time I ran it, I only ran it with one query or one SQL query in there. And the second 2 times I ran it, it didn't run. So it ran this one first, and then it skipped this one, and then ran these 2. Huh.
I think it skipped the first 2 and then ran only the last one.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
then
yeah.
roll 3 in.
Yep. Great. That's fun. So in that case, now we have duplicate data, which is never good. So what we can do is PSQL, Lima Platoon, example, drop the table, and then rerun C data, Lima Platoon, select everything. There we go. Quit. Let's create some guardians. So got 3 guardians. I can get rid of, I've got name, phone number, email address, Sarah Connor, Ruthie Cohen, myself. We'll get rid of those. Let's get rid of these IDs if they, hopefully it works. So I'm gonna run this again. I'm dropping the table because I'm adding more data into it. All right, let's see. Clear. So now I'm in my database. I have guardians and addresses. So now I want to do some queries on my addresses and guardians tables. So for example, I want to see where Tom Preet lives. So if you know, the last column is the address ID. So I can select, I just want to select everything from Guardians. Select all from Guardians. So I've got Sarah Connor, Ruthie Cohen, Tom Preet. I can grab. So how do I go about grabbing the address through the Guardians? So I'm on Guardians and I want to join addresses, right? So what's that query look like? Select everything from Guardians. Then I'm going to join the addresses table. The addresses table. So join addresses on where the addresses ID equals the Guardians ID, or Guardians dot address ID, where name equals Tom Preet. There we go. It's a lot of data. Does anybody have any questions how I grabbed my address from starting from the Guardians, joining the addresses table on specifically where those two where the values should equal one another?
For the on clause, does it matter the order of those two?
I think it does, but let's check that out. I'm going to quit, clear. So if I changed it around, actually I don't, addresses.id, I don't think it does actually, but we'll find out.
I don't think it does, Tom, on a join, but I think if you were doing a left sided join, it might.
Okay. Interesting. So select star from Guardians. So yeah, doesn't matter there. I have ran into issues in the past where that mattered. I couldn't replicate it. I just remember it occurring one time or a couple of times, and I didn't investigate it too much. I was just like, oh, okay. So
is there just, as a good practice, do we always put I noticed you put the, join addresses, so you put addresses first. Is that just?
Yeah, it's just how I did it. Just because I joined the addresses, and I was just like, okay, I've got addresses on my mind, so I'm going to grab the ID from addresses where it equals the Guardians.address ID. Now,
Oops, sorry, left my mic open. But while I do, probably a little bit of minutia, Tom. Your zip code, you chose it to be a varchar. Are we going to get into doing geo stuff? I'm just wondering. If that wasn't since we didn't choose to store it as a number, do we get into issues if later on we try to do geo?
Yeah. So yeah, and that's why. So numbers, when it stores numbers into a database or an integer, and it has a 0 preceding, like starting with a 0, it will not include that 0. If you have like an integer, if it's like 0, 1, it'll just show up as 1, I'm pretty sure.
Gotcha.
So that's why, that's kind of why I did the zip code. And that's why we have it as a string.
And you can cast it later, even inside of Postgres, right? I think I think Jake was doing that yesterday. It seemed like he was doing a lot of typecasting
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, I'm sure. Like that's yeah, whatever he was doing was probably like way beyond what I am familiar with. So, all right, we have that. I'm gonna quit, clear, jump back in, and now since I had like all that, I just want the addresses. So select addresses from Guardians. So there, I just have the addresses. But notice how it looks kind of weird. It looks like it's almost like a tuple, something weird. In order to fix that, you can just do the dot plus or dot star. And there you go.
So for that one again, so select addresses gives you everything from the addresses table? No.
No, the way it's formatted isn't pretty. It's like select addresses. It's literally just grabbing that entire row, but it's not the printing. The way it's printed out isn't like.
But going up to the Lima Platoon equals hash, the actual command you set.
Yeah, this is the exactly same command or query, but
So you're selecting a table. Oh, so that's what's.
yeah, I'm selecting the addresses table, so the whole table is showing up here, but only specifically that one row because that's where it equals my name.
Select the entire addresses table from the Guardians. I'm not following the logic there.
So I'm literally just saying, like, just grab all the addresses information from the Guardians. It's kind of how we, like, if you look on, let me quit it, clear. So if it's, because I want to grab, if I only wanted to grab address information, so if I just select star, it shows everything like name, phone number, email address from both tables. If I only wanted address information, I can do, there's this way, but this is never good because it's just grabbing that entire table, pretty much everything from the addresses, which is like this part, or I'm sorry, yeah, from like here to the right, but it doesn't have any column headers or anything like that.
Tom, what if you do that the last one you did, the select star from that whole line again, but then add a
This one?
the one before that. The one that says select star,
Oh,
just select star, and then add as addresses to the end of the star.
as
Addresses, and then run that one. I think it might be the same. Oh no, it won't. It won't let you do that. I feel like that's what it was doing, but it's not.
just essentially if you want to, the whole point I'm just saying, like, you can grab the entire table where that, where this equals my name, and it just grabs like specifically that row, but it doesn't have any information like from a column headers point of view. It just says, here's the addresses.
So the whole point of that query is to find Tom Preet's address by searching through the Guardians and checking that against the address ID.
Yes. Let's go up. But if you wanted to like actually break it out, just the addresses columns, I do addresses dot star. So I can grab all, like, just all the addresses or all the headers in the addresses table.
And that from really, like, I'm used to, or mentally, I'm just evaluating straight from left to right. So select addresses from Guardians. That's where I put kind of the first close parentheses, but it sounds like it's really, the parentheses should be around guardians join addresses.
Yeah. So select saying like select this specific data, like select these specific columns from guardians, and then also joining in the tables. So you already you've already decided what type of columns you're going to select from both of those tables. But yeah, you're right. Like there should be a parentheses from guardians. Yeah.
You can't be taking addresses from guardians because guardians doesn't have any addresses. So it has to be the guardians join addresses.
Right. So this is the part where you're combining everything.
Right. Okay.
All right. And then there's, select guardians dot name addresses line 1 addresses line 2. This is where I'm literally just cherry picking which columns I want out of those two tables. Addresses dot city addresses dot state. That just gets repetitive. Addresses dot zip code from guardians join addresses. I'm going to select that. I'm going to from guardians join what is it? Addresses on addresses.id equals guardians.address ID where guardians.name equals Tom Preet. Uh-oh. Oh, I messed it up.
You have it from twice.
Yeah. There we go. Another easy way to do that. Oh.
So just a real tactical or tool thing. When you do the up and down arrow to get the last command back and forth, it looks like you can go up and edit that. I guess that's maybe within P-SQL. Not like I tried to do that from command line and it wouldn't work. Like I do a multi-line SQL command.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. It looks like you can do it. I'll keep trying.
Yeah. Yeah, you should be able to just press up and then edit whatever previous queries you have done. So we're here where it's like I, again, had manually just cherry picked all the columns. The same thing is just guardians.name, addresses.star. Same difference. And I can do extended display by doing \x, turns on and off the extended display. All right, let's input some students into the database. So here we got a couple of students. We have Mike, my sister. Cool. So name, grade 1, grade 5, date of birth, 2010, 01, 28. All right. So I'm going to PSQL, Lima Platoon. What is it? Example schema. So I'm going to literally drop out all the data that I just did, put in there because I don't want any duplicates. PSQL, Lima Platoon, insert seed. All right, clear. All right. Now, I messed up So if I screwed up inserting some data, so I can do PSQL, Lima Platoon. So I didn't include the last name for Mike. Now, usually there would have a separate last name, but for all intents and purposes, I want to change this Mike to say Mike Preet or something like that. How do I update when I'm in the Postgres, the SQL console? So if I wanted to update the student name, where the ID, let's see, that's on. Let's select star from students. So Mike doesn't have a last name. I want to put a last name next to it. How do I update this database from the command line or from the SQL command line? What's the command to update a table? Does anybody know?
It's update and then the table name.
So we're going to update students. Okay. Does anybody know?
And then set name equal to the value, the new value.
How to update SQL database. So, yep, you're exactly right. So update table, set. So I'm going to copy this over. I'll put that down here, comment it out. So update set. So column, so we're name equals Mike Preet, and then where the ID is 1. So where ID equals 1, or is it just 1? So it says updated 1 record. I'm going to quit, clear, jump back in, select everything from students. There it goes. Mike Preet is now changed. Don't worry about this specific order. It's just how it grabs the data. It's still in the same order based off of like the ID. All right. So I want to create a query to grab names of students where the guardian's name is Tom Preet. How do I do that? So let's look at our schema. So I want to grab students whose guardians is Tom Preet. So my guardian ID. So I can do select students name from students, this table. I'm grabbing the students table. I'm going to join the guardians table on guardians dot ID equals students dot guardian underscore ID, where guardians dot name equals Tom Preet. There you go. So both of those have the same. And I can quit that, clear it, jump back in. Now, I want to get the address of Mike, I want to get the address. Select everything from students. So I want to get Mike's address, but there aren't any addresses in here. Like, there's nothing referencing this address. So I need to go through the guardians table and grab the address. So this is called like a multiple join table. So I can select, when I select the, what is it, students.name and addresses dot star everything from, I'm going to start at the addresses. So I'm starting at the addresses. I'm going to join the guardians table. So guardians table where the address ID equals, so the addresses dot ID equals the guardians dot ID. So on guardians dot address underscore ID equals addresses dot ID. And then I'm also going to join the students table, join students on where the students dot guardian ID equals the guardian's ID, guardians.id, where the student dot name equals Mike Preet. So there we go. So what I did, I started with the addresses. I started at the addresses table. I joined the guardians table on where the guardians.address ID equals the addresses.id. So it's looking at a match between these two. And then I'm also joining the students table afterwards. So it's actually, dang it. I wanted to put it all on one line or on the separate line. So then I'm joining the students table where the students.guardian ID equals the guardians.id, where the students.name equals Mike Preet. So if I quit, clear. Does anybody have any question on the double join table?
Just to, I don't know if this is deliberate or not, but it looks like, well, the first table in the from is where you're actually going to get the data from. So that's and then the second one, going back to the diagram, is kind of the intermediate one. Like you wouldn't, does it matter what order you put the tables in the join statement, or do you want to do it kind of the way you did it?
Let's check it out. I think it does matter. So if I do addresses, so say if I started with students, join the guardians, where guardians ID equals students. So guardians.id, I mean, addresses dot guardians join.
You're going to want addresses.
What?
Address.guardian ID.
Oh, thank you. So this would be students join addresses, where addresses dot ID equals guardians address ID, where students dot name equals Mike Preet. Let's see if this works. Oh shit, I just messed up. No. So it still works that way. So the first example, I started here. I joined the guardians, and then I joined the students, and it said where the student name equals Mike Preet. The second example, I start with the students, join the guardians, and then join the addresses where the students.name equals Mike Preet. Quit, clear.
So in both cases, though, you went, like you wouldn't do it students, then addresses, then guardians, right?
Yeah, let's see this. Yeah, you can't do students addresses because there's nothing matching them. You can't do like students.id equals equals addresses dot. There's nothing connecting them. So you always have to go through the guardians table.
Okay.